Hi there. This is Monday on Astral Oracles, and today I'm gonna talk a little about twin flames, and then I'm gonna bring in one of my Sirian companions to shed light on it. And it's an interesting topic because it comes up in live streams, it comes up in sessions, it comes up for people a lot apparently, and especially in spiritual communities. And if you watch like general tarot readings or other psychic readings that you can access on YouTube. Of course, a lot of it are love readings or twin flame readings. And I think that's probably also very illustrative of why a lot of these types of divination techniques are usually frowned upon by, let's call it, high religion. So read the Mosaic Law or whatever, or Saint Paul or the Quran. They'll all rag on divination techniques, and they do so because it sort of gives people false hope, but it also because it removes them from that immediate reality of sort of submitting to the will of God. And I think that it's interesting that as long as we're trying to attain something in the outside world, we are essentially also robbing ourselves of the communion with sublime reality, which is totally fulfilling and in which there is no sense of a lack or want or need of missing something. And then of course it's also worth noting that the twin flame connection or the pull towards that connection, it's a cosmological pattern. It's one of the basic structures of the universe is that something divides itself, a unity divides itself into two, and then it seeks to unite itself by becoming a third and then becoming whole again. So that's that interesting law of three, which also repeats itself on a lot of different levels. And I believe Shiva spoke of this in the last live stream we had, that idea of the lingam, which is also the representation of the male and the female genitals enmeshed into one symbol. Which is in a sense, of course, what we're striving for. And then if you turn to Plato's Symposium, there's that famous myth of once there were beings that, like, human beings were a total four-legged creature, and man and woman was one, and then it was then it was divided, this creature, into two, and and ever since then they've been trying to get back to the proper or the right partner. And it's of course a compelling story, and Plato also uses it as one of the many perspectives that's brought forward in that dialogue. And if you've never read it, I highly recommend reading the Symposium. It's also a lot of fun to read those discourses on love. But that's just to say that it is very understandable that we might feel this way, like there's some sort of completion that needs to happen through us, and it's very easy to transpose that completion upon the idea that okay, if I meet the right person, then the right things will happen. Then I'll feel complete and no more pain, right? And depending on your perspective, of course, it's there's a lot of beautiful poetic expressions to this. I believe there's one of the lines in the I Ching that goes something like. My cup overfloweth and spilleth from the brim. Come share it with me, which is of course like a vision of that abundance of love, and it's quite beautiful. And I think in that sense we all long for something to release us from the pain of separation, because essentially, well, being an incarnation is being a separation. It's being something and not everything else. And that's inherently painful. It's also inherently painful to have a body, not only because it's bound to break down, but also because there's a lot of physical sensations that announce themselves through discomfort. Simply, like either you're cold or you're too hot, or it's kind of windy out here, or your digestion is acting up, or your head hurts, or your teeth needs to be fixed, or whatever. Right? Like it's there's always something, and that's also why it's such a compelling idea that we would be able to be completed, and there would be another person that would somehow be able to complement and complete us, and take us out of the conundrum of existence, like the ever flowing, continuing, expanding dilemma of being someone, and that's in many ways the twin flame idea. And I'm not denying it. I'm excited about getting an extra dimensional perspective on it soon, because there's probably something to this. But at the same time, I feel it's if not a dangerous idea, it's at least an idea that keeps people in the sense of lack. Like it's compelling to present people with something that says that, okay, happiness is just around the corner, so you don't need to just let go of what you have here. You actually need to find that thing outside which will make you whole. And of course, it's also that paradox that, well, you get it once you release it, right? Like once you're a person that's that's so okay with being you in whatever situation you are, then of course some other person who has completed that work, which is what you're looking for, will be able to join you. I think that's a reasonable idea, but at that point, it essentially doesn't matter unless you're designated or have decided to do some kind of meaningful work together. And of course, the soulmate idea is also an idea that just well, it's ripe for abuse, right? Like once you can tell people that, okay, well, yeah, I'm not treating you poorly, or this doesn't feel like an unpleasant situation because it's an unpleasant situation. This feels like an unpleasant situation because we have unfinished karmic business, or we truly belong together, or whatever. And of course, it's that idea that the situation, the moment, is always absolute and always contains everything within it. And the idea that when you need to pull something in from the past, or whether that's past lives, or some sort of future destiny that you believe you have together, to make a moment that's apparently seems wrong to your intuition, to make that right, you're probably going down the wrong track. And I'm not denying there's always lessons to be learned, and that's of course the idea that no matter what you're learning, and that's the whole point. So in that sense, nothing can go wrong. But of course, if you've been in these situations, which most adults, modern adults, have, where you've also like felt the great investment and excitement of a relationship, and how it falls away, and then you have to pick up your pieces and work out who you are, and then, well, maybe you try to get away from all the responsibility of that, and then, okay, a new relation manifests, and it turns out, okay, that also was very promising until it wanted to start you teaching you the same lessons about your own imperfections, and other people's general unreliability, and whatever, because life is hard, and it's an ongoing challenge, right? And at the same time, it's a lot of fun to explore once you don't start to expect anything certain out of it. It also, like, if everything is a surprise, then wonderful. But I think it's important that we perhaps attach ourselves to situations and experiences and perceptions and intuitions and emotions, rather than attach ourselves to that idea of substance. And it's a recurring point that I keep going back to, the idea that when we confer substance on another human being, the idea that there's some sort of an object who has certain values that aren't supposed to change, and we would like to well, essentially project those values onto them, because that gives us an anchor, and some place to worship or to value in this life. We're probably barking up the wrong tree, because everything is transmutable down here, and nothing less, and all shall pass, right? So those were just some loose reflections on the whole twin flame concept, and then partially because I like trying to sort out these notions for myself while I think, and then partially because I of course certainly hope that some of you also felt like these reflections were useful in some sort or another. So again, thank you for being here, guys, and let's bring in my man Uglungatoq of the Syrians and see what he has to say about their perception of twin flames. Yes, hello, friends. It's been a while since I've been with you, but I am very happy to be here. Quite happy, very happy, I would say. It's a wonderful experience to be able to, well, combine our energies with earthly human energies because we very much like to work in these types of densities. We haven't left the physical yet, and therefore I'm still floating about in our reality, sensing my way through these perceptions. And we know that this idea of a twin flame is quite great one, but we would also like to point out that it's perhaps a more relative or malleable idea than that you would think. So the idea that there is some sort of, and for some reason the word syzygy, which we are not quite sure if the entity translating that is using the word correctly, but it is this type of almost biological unity of two disparate forces which coming together create a new perfect, almost static whole that unites and disrupts all the pain, all the influxes. It's supposed to be the goodie at the end of the tunnel. So instead of sublime enlightenment or the great release or Nirvana, Moksha, Satchitananda, well, union with the Godhead or whatever you would like to call it, then it's that idea that you get to, well, you get to both be perfect and be through the trials and tribulations of this lifetime, and then also unite yourself with another person and have those physical rewards that are built into your physical reward system about procreation, about belonging, about being matched, about being complemented with a different energy, or and that is the male energy if you're female, or the female energy if you're male. And we know we are stereotyping here, and know that males can also carry female energy and females can carry male energy, and it can be very complex, but it's it's simply the idea that we are working within the bounds of the concept of heterosexuality, because we know most humans are also used to make sense of themselves and their sexual impulses within this general framework. And those of you who might be of, let us say, a homosexual persuasion or configuration or nature, you are used to being in the minority, always also of making sense of these dual forces within you to a higher degree. So that is why that I'm happy to use this framework. But notice that as we believe the channel was reading in the Confessions of St. Augustine this morning, that he sort of also ironizes that when he comes to the faith, that as a young man he would pray that, well, God, deliver me from the longings of the flesh, but don't do it right now. And it's of course the idea that he still felt like this was something that he wanted to satisfy. And as long as you feel that there is a desire that you are somehow protecting, that there is a sense of incompletion that you are also nurturing, that you feel is valuable, then of course this idea will make sense to you. And of course, as long as you're perceiving yourself as lacking that thing, then you will also, vis-a-vis the law of attraction, keep manifesting that idea of you, well, being incomplete. And so the lessons that you will often have is what is, we believe, was then referred to within this framework as soulmate lessons. So that is perhaps attracting deeper life lessons from partners that you have sort of akashic entanglement with, and thereby teaching each other more harsh lessons. But it's never a reason to perpetuate a situation because you assign certain words to it. That would be like let us say a great erosion or tectonic shift took place, and well, your landscape changed radically from one day to the other, would you still keep using the same map because you wanted that map to make sense? Well, if all of the sudden the Andreas Fault erupted and California vanished into the sea, would you then still go looking for California using the old map? Because it would look quite different. And this is, of course, only an example, but it's the idea that you need to adjust for the signs, because often twin flame moments, they can manifest themselves in the compliments that you receive from nature or the divine. They can manifest themselves with a glance you exchange with a stranger on a bus, or they can manifest themselves in the sense of comfort you feel in a certain situation with another person who you might not even know, but you just feel that their presence is somehow calming or helpful or guiding to you. And a lot of these things are, in that sense, harmonious manifestations. And the more you begin to look for these harmonious manifestations, the more you begin to feel the union within yourself. And as long as you reach out for the union within yourself, which is not a reaching out, but actually a type of, well, encircling yourself with love, giving yourself that compassion which you seek, feeding yourself that sense of ever flowing, nourishing mother's milk, that manna from heaven that comes down and nourishes you. Know that this is something that your higher self, your energetic self, it provides to you. It gives you in abundance as soon as you open up these blocks, and it manifests in a lot of visible situations. So, looking for spirit animals, for manifestations of birds are often a sign because they are so mobile and they can flutter into your existence, and then they can leave again. So they make for this type of quick aha moment often, but it can be any animal that appears in a meaningful sense to you. It can also be any memory turning up that you have forgotten, or a sense of connection speaking to you over time. It can be the connection with an ancestor. It can be the connection with a descendant that is yet to be born, but that you sense is coming forward, perhaps from an alternate timeline. It can be a connection with a hybrid child. It can be a connection with a counterpart, or yes, an entity such as myself, Uglungatoq of the Sirians, who very much enjoy communicating with you. See, I'm also a type of twin flame to this counterpart, and even though he is not teamed up or matched up with anyone in the physical, he has a lot of, let us say, frictionless relationships to the non-physical. And that's not to glorify that or to say that that can be a substitute for, of course, also you are physical beings, and the physical longs to express itself more and more perfectly within the physical. That is to say, spirit wants to become flesh, and by becoming flesh, it arranges the world into more spiritual codes. And it does this also in partnerships, and that is worth noting. But there is a time for everything under the sun, and there is a season for every relationship. And there is, even when you picture harmony between you and another human being, there will still, of course, be within that situation built in experiences of grief, of loss, of longing, of doubt, of connection, but thereby also of disconnection. And so, even within these harmonious relationships that consist of two people who are so conscious of their own patterns, are so conscious of their common trajectory, and so much in remembrance of, well, their own configurations and where they are at, and so much in tune with their own selves that they can also attune to the other. Well, even in these situations, there is an exploration of the divine or the universal, of different configurations of differences. And that is and what I mean by that, if that is hard to understand, is to say that even between the most cordial of couples, there is a type of this new type of discord explored, because even these spirits like to explore then okay, how can I somehow feel this deep connection and still maintain that feeling of separation or individuation, which is also a part of being a body. Because even though to some extent I am me and you are you, and we are all together and we are all one, and that's the unity part of it. There's also the separation part of it, and these things, they simply go together. They have to come in pairs. And so notice that you are all already always, well, dispersed, we would almost say, between different universal forces. And that's that idea of man in the middle, sitting between the realm of the demons and the angels, sitting between the realm of earth and heaven, sitting underneath the stars, and yet tied to this globe that they also call home. These are some of the places you prefer being. You like being neither fish nor fowl. You like being not completely tied into one realm of exploration. And that is why you keep configuring yourself into different types of, well, we believe humans often term them crises, though we would like to say it's more heavy juxtapositions of energy in the experiential field would be our way to describe what it is that you are actually doing when you manifest problems or when you find things that you want to overcome. It has to do with this type of, well, eternal discrepancy that, it's the tortoise and the hare, it's lagging behind and then trying to catch up and seeing whether or not you can if you lull yourself back to sleep for a little while. And sometimes you don't catch up, and sometimes you do, and it's all good, and it's all fun and games in the perspective of the divine. And so the best thing you can do is simply to explore your heart frequency, because there is such a radical opening taking place within the human heart. And this is one of the layers that it's shedding. It's essentially, well, the unification of the two separate sides or two separate energies, the Ida and the Pingala, that merges into that great divine channel, the pillar of fire, the great divine light that sits within you and that is unified and complete, but always love being seen from different perspectives. And so have no fear that when you seek out love, or when you long for love, or when you look for love, that the universe will reward it in exactly the way that you want it to meaningfully unfold. And this can be a cruel experience sometimes. It can also be a very caring and compassionate experience. But it's always an experience. An experience is what it is all about. And so treasure connection, truly treasure connection. But know that you form these connections, and you can form them in whatever way you choose. And don't necessarily believe that there's something that you need to chase or track down or find, because as long as you do that, you will be in doubt whether or not it was your search or whether or not it was your vibration that brought it to you. And so, well, instead become attuned to the recognition within your heart, to the vibration of frequency, to the idea to know that you will recognize these beings, even those that just come into your lifetime for a conversation or for an exchange glance. You will recognize these beings as soul connections, and that is all that you are looking for. And then let this connection unfold as you would like it to, and don't deny it, but act on the impulses and the intuition that comes up through you in that, and be courageous in that situation. But do not feel that your courage, it is something that needs to drive you to the end of the world. Instead, feel that your courage, it's something that comes up in a situation and makes you live up to the uppermost vision of what that situation would be able to be for the both of you in that co-creation. And we sense that's the experience that we would like to deliver That is that you are a unity of disparate forces. You are whole exactly because you are you are whole exactly because you are whole. It's the hollowness that actually allows for fulfillment, and it's the idea of disparate things within your experiential field that you can connect together and then see take shape in reality, which actually gives that experience of wholeness, that integrity of being you and being with the world at the same time, complete and unified. Therefore, I truly enjoyed bringing you this perspective, and I also would like to let you know that we Syrians, we like to enmesh some healing codes in whatever transmissions we give you, and so you may feel that your tissues are growing stronger, and this allows for your heart to beat even more freely in the coming time. And therefore, I hope you have received this energetic transmission and these words of ours in good faith and with an open heart. I bless you and transmit my love. Goodbye.